Chapter 61 The Value of Tianjiao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Kong Miaoyin wasn't exactly hard to figure out. She wasn't just another demon clan genius, she was the official heir to a major demon lineage. Her future involved rising to a powerful position, becoming a prominent leader in the demon forest, and eventually helping rule the entire demon race. So, her perspective was different from your average monster. The demon sect might see Zhao Mu as a threatening human genius to be eliminated, but Kong Miaoyin saw him as a potentially valuable asset, for a future leader, recruiting, or even buying. A future top human leader could significantly boost her own power base. Leaders think long-term. Considering all angles and seizing every advantage to strengthen their position, Zhao Mu shook his head. He wasn't a fan of these power players. They might act all friendly and respectful, but really, they were just calculating. Everyone was a tool in their eyes, all they cared about was power and status. Everything else was just an act. Because he was a human genius, Kong Miaoyin was offering him an olive branch. Without that reputation, he'd probably be just another bug to her. Still, having a good relationship with such a pragmatic power woman wasn't necessarily a bad thing. If you proved your worth, she wouldn't be stingy with the rewards. Of course, you had to watch your back to avoid getting played and ending up a chump. Playing political games wasn't Zhao Mu's strength. Luckily, he was confident in his own abilities and potential. With the system backing him up, Zhao Mu didn't mind mixing it up with someone like Kong Miaoyin. Besides, just looking at her, Zhao Mu would consider trying to impress her regardless. Zhao Mu glanced at the system. Kong Miaoyin's favorability was still stuck. No change. This woman was going to be a tough nut to crack. Getting her favorability up to 60 was going to be a real challenge. Wow, Zhao, you're amazing. You talked to senior sister Kong without even flinching. I couldn't even look her in the eye. Her aura is so intense. Another glance and I thought my cultivation might crumble. Niu Yulan finally let out a sigh of relief after Kong Miaoyin left. She was seriously impressed by Zhao Mu's cool demeanor. Zhao Mu smiled. She's powerful, but she's not some kind of monster. No need to be so scared. Besides, sure, she's beautiful, but she doesn't have your curves. As he said that, Zhao Mu's hand started to wander. Niu Yulan didn't stand a chance against Zhao Mu's magic touch. She resisted for a second, then completely melted into his arms. Looks like it's time to redeem today's rewards. Zhao Mu grabbed Niu Yulan and found a cave to slip into. Today's cave exploration was smoother than ever, and they both had a great time. Ding! You gifted Niu Yulan Qiyang liquid, triggering a 1,000-fold return. The Qiyang holy body gains the results of 10 years of cultivation. A surge of red sun power flooded his body, instantly energizing Zhao Mu. One gift equaled 10 years of hard work. Plus, the process was so enjoyable, it felt like hitting the jackpot. Afterward, Zhao Mu cooked a huge pot of dragon broth, and they both feasted before continuing the hunt. Kong Miaoyin had cleared out the monsters blocking the road, so there was no need to detour. Zhao Mu leisurely continued deeper into the canyon, clearing out monsters along the way. As long as the groups of monsters didn't exceed 200, they weren't a threat to him. The points kept climbing, but Zhao Mu was still stuck in 5th place. The other players were hunting monsters fast, too. At his current pace, it would take over 2 days to crack the top 3. Time to pick up the pace. This time, Zhao Mu lured a total of 300 magical beasts. They were close to the center of the secret realm, and the monsters were getting tougher. Earth-level monsters were everywhere, and they occasionally ran into heaven-level ones. Among these 300, there were 2 heaven-level and a dozen earth-level monsters. Even a strong Yuanian cultivator would be sweating bullets. Purple lightning tangle. Purple lightning exploded, controlling most of the monsters, but the 2 heaven-level monsters broke free and charged Zhao Mu, jaws wide open. Niu Yulan was nervous, but she knew she wasn't strong enough to fight heaven-level monsters. Jumping in would only slow Zhao Mu down, so she held back. The heaven-level monsters were coming fast, but Zhao Mu didn't look worried. He let them get close, and when they were just 3 steps away, he shifted slightly. With one subtle move, he perfectly dodged the attack and even used their momentum to make the 2 monsters smash into each other. Footwork. At 3.5 steps, his dodging was almost unbeatable up close. Unless someone could outspeed him, there was no way they were landing a hit. After dodging the heaven-level monsters, Zhao Mu's palms turned red and glowed with heat like branding irons. He slammed them into the monsters' foreheads, crack. The sound was like breaking glass. Zhao Mu's palm had shattered the skull of the heaven-level monster. The scorching heat left a burnt 5-finger mark on the top of the monster's head, and the monster crystal inside was destroyed. As Zhao Mu's red sun holy body improved, the burning flame palm became even more powerful. Even a nascent soul cultivator would have trouble with that kind of destructive power. The battle was over. A heaven-level monster is worth 1,000 points. No wonder those guys are scoring so fast. They're probably focusing on heaven-level monsters and ignoring the weak ones, Zhao Mu muttered. Niu Yulan rushed over and checked Zhao Mu for injuries. She relaxed when she saw he was okay. Zhao, you're incredible. We're both at the 5th level of Jindan, but you're worth 10 of me in a fight. That's what a prodigy is. I've seen a lot of prodigies among the demon race, but none of them have your crazy strength. So, someone who can fight across realms is a prodigy? Zhao Mu asked. He always heard the word prodigy, but he didn't really know what it meant. You could say that beating someone a major realm above you is the entry requirement. You also need incredible comprehension, a great physique and bloodline, and unwavering willpower. Those are the ingredients that make a true prodigy. But honestly, even though the demon sect is full of disciples called prodigies, very few really deserve the title. The saint's son, the saint daughter, and senior sister Kong are in the top tier. Long Tianxiang, Han Rong, and the direct disciples under the elders are in the second tier. What about me? Zhao Mu asked. Niu Yulan leaned close to Zhao Mu's ear, gently grazed his earlobe with her tongue, and giggled, "Honey, you're one of a kind." Chapter 62 Weak Woman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, partner, looks like the little cow's trying to get her flirt on. Seriously. This calls for immediate action. This delay already cost us over an hour. After getting our bearings, Zhao Mu resumed the hunt. About half the day went by. The canyon floor flattened out all of a sudden, like we were at the end of the line. After making it through, Zhao Mu was a little surprised by what he saw, an ancient stone city, just sitting there, but it had been deserted for ages. Even the toughest rocks were showing the wear and tear of time. That's weird. Judging by how weathered the stone is, this ancient city's been abandoned for at least 100,000 years. But this monster realm's only been around for 8,000 years. How'd this ancient city end up here? Niu Yulan asked, picking up on the strangeness of the scene. Zhao Mu wondered, could it be that whoever built this monster realm ripped a piece of land out of the real world and plopped it in here? Could be. Niu Yulan agreed. They headed straight into the old stone city. No monsters around, but they did run into a bunch of demon sect disciples. Guess they were drawn in by the ancient stone city too. This is wild. I've done this hunting thing a bunch of times, been all over this place. Never seen anything like this before, a chubby demon cultivator said, slapping his forehead, scratching his head. The monk with a long face chimed in, first time I've been this deep into the secret realm, but I've done hundreds of these hunts, and I've never heard of any ruins around here. You think some monsters built this thing out of nowhere? Look closer, another person said. Sure, the weathering looks natural, but if you really pay attention, you can still see signs of people working on it. He was squatting down, eyeballing a square stone door frame, that got everyone's attention. They all crowded around to take a look. Zhao Mu was pretty surprised too, so he and Niu Yulan stepped up to see what was going on. When the others spotted Zhao Mu, they instantly got all tense. Only the one guy seemed happy to see him. Hey, Zhao. Heard a lot about you. You're checking out these ruins too, huh? You must be new to the demon sect. First time on the hunt. I've been with the sect for over 500 years, done this over 400 times. I can guarantee you, this stone city wasn't here before. It's gotta be brand new, less than a year old. This guy was a talker, no doubt about it. Didn't even let Zhao Mu get a word in edgewise. Oh, I know, That the guy suddenly clapped his hands together. Zhao, you're a genius. You're strong. Maybe you could bust open that blocked stone door. Blocked stone door? Where? Zhao Mu asked, curious. The guy was about to answer, but then he glanced around at the demon cultivators and lowered his voice. Hey, let's talk about this somewhere else. Zhao Mu nodded. Seemed like this guy had some inside info. The demons got the hint, but after a little hemming and hawing, they decided not to follow. Zhao Mu was kind of a big deal. Big shot in the Shengyuan Demon Sect. Even the Queen Tianyuan was paying attention. Picking a fight with him right now was a bad idea. Best to just back off and keep the peace. A few minutes later, Zhao Mu and the talkative guy were hanging out by some other ruins. Hey, senior brother Zhao, name's Su Yang. I'm a Formation Valley inner disciple. Actually, we've met. I was impressed by your, youthful energy. Su Yang said he'd been a disciple for 500 years, but he wasn't that powerful. Only 8th level of the Jindan realm. He seemed kind of worn out, even though he wasn't old. Dark, weathered skin. Looked like he'd spent a lot of time out in the sun. Since we're on the same team, let's cut to the chase. What's this about a blocked stone door? Zhao Mu got right to the point. Su Yang was about to answer, but he looked at Niu Yulan, standing next to Zhao Mu, and got all shifty-eyed. Don't worry about her. She's with me, Zhao Mu said, grabbing Niu Yulan's hand and holding it tight. Niu Yulan's heart skipped a beat. She was all eyes for Zhao Mu, totally ignoring Su Yang. Seeing that, Su Yang stopped holding back. Okay, so I found this stone city yesterday. First, I thought it was here before the monster realm, but then I saw all the signs of people working on it. So I figured it was just a new, fake antique city, but I didn't have any proof. Then, last night, I dug down and found a stone door buried underground. It's super heavy, blocked by some kind of formation. I cracked the formation, but it's still too heavy for me to open. Zhao Mu pretty much knew where this was going. Show me the way. I'll see if I can bust it open. Lead the way. Su Yang was thrilled. With a genius like Zhao Mu helping out, opening the door shouldn't be a problem. He was dying to know what was behind it. As they moved, Zhao Mu noticed the demons were following them. Zhao Mu's eyes flashed, and he threw a palm strike toward the demon cultivators. Suddenly, fire shot through the air. Where the wind from the palm hit, the stone houses crumbled, the ground cracked, and heat blasted out, scaring the demons half to death. They took off running. After shaking the pests off, Zhao Mu and the others kept going, and soon Su Yang led them to a stone house that was still in pretty good shape. In the middle of the house was a staircase that spiraled down underground, 4 or 5 stories deep. At the bottom of the stairs was the stone door Su Yang had been talking about. It looked plain and simple, nothing special about it. But Zhao Mu recognized something right away. The stuff the door was made of looked really familiar. It was the same as the big piece of ore he'd dug up in the Sea of Corruption. That ore was super dense, heavy, and solid. Even an 8th grade flying sword wouldn't leave a scratch on it. No wonder Su Yang couldn't open a door made of that stuff. Just a door. How hard can it be? Let me try. Niu Yulan volunteered. She came from the demonic cow clan, and she was strong. Zhao Mu had figured that out back in the cave. Couldn't hurt to let her have a go. Niu Yulan rolled up her sleeves, showing off her smooth white arms. The arm looked weak, but the moment Niu Yulan put her power into it, it was like she transformed. Snap. The door didn't budge, but the ground under her feet cracked, and her legs started sinking. Niu Yulan's eyes went wide. She was shocked. This rock is tough. I don't think I can do it. I'll leave it to you, junior brother. Niu Yulan gave up. She actually had some juice left. She could probably boost her power by another 30 or 40% if she really went all out, but she didn't want to show her rough side to the guy she liked. Being the damsel in distress was more her style with junior brother Zhao. Chapter 63 Ancestors of the State of Zhao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhao Mu wasn't sure about the ore's durability, knowing how tough it was, but he had to give it a shot. He walked up to the stone door and took a deep breath, unleashing the power of the red sun holy body, which surged through him. His heart raced, his blood felt like it was boiling, he grunted as red flames erupted from his arms, and he slammed into the stone door with a resounding clang, using every ounce of his strength. Zhao Mu managed to push the stone door open just a crack. Not enough. Zhao Mu strained harder, channeling the Shengyuan gong. His meridians tightened, and spiritual power flooded his arms. Open up, Zhao Mu roared, and the stone door finally gave way to his brute force, swinging open completely. Zhao Mu's eyes widened in surprise at the scene beyond the door. It was just a plain, unremarkable hut, containing nothing but a sleeping monster. This can't be it. Just some beast. Su Yang was equally stunned by the sight. It was the last thing he expected. Zhao Mu remained cautious. Even though the monster seemed harmless, he knew things weren't always as they appeared. Better safe than sorry. Drawing his flying sword, Zhao Mu slowly entered the hut. Purple lightning crackled around him, ready to subdue the monster. The monster stirred and woke up instantly, but the lightning seemed to have no effect. It slowly rose to its feet and looked up at Zhao Mu and the others. Its eyes, the three of them froze as the monster's gaze fell upon them. Other monsters had dark, empty eyes, devoid of emotion, but this monster was different. Its eyes were bright and intelligent, almost human. This was a magical beast with a mind. This is creepy. That thing gives me the creeps, Niu Yulan said, hiding behind Zhao Mu. Zhao Mu frowned, then stepped forward towards the monster. Hey, can you understand me? Zhao Mu asked. The monster stared at Zhao Mu, then, after a moment of silence, said, hunting day again. Is she back? She. Zhao Mu pondered this. Are you waiting for someone? He asked. I forgot, but I remember someone asking me to wait here for her to come back. I've been waiting for so long, afraid she'd get lost. I even rebuilt Handan City, which she loved, hoping to guide her home. Handan City? Su Yang looked shocked. Zhao Mu asked, do you know that place? I've read about Handan City in old books. It was an important town on the western edge of the Zhao dynasty. Nearly 100,000 years ago, Handan City bordered the 10,000 Demons Forest and was the first line of defense against demon invasions. 8,000 years ago, the Forest of 10,000 Demons unleashed a wave of corruption, wiping out Handan City overnight. Millions of soldiers and civilians became monsters. I remember the Sword Immortal from the Holy Land of Stars intervened and leveled Handan City with a single strike, driving away the monsters. Zhao State. Zhao Mu's expression changed. When he first arrived, he was a nobleman in the Zhao dynasty, living the high life in the capital until a demon sect disciple kidnapped him right before his wedding. If that hadn't happened, he might have already had kids with Princess Zhao. Anyway, Zhao Mu's former self was a clueless rich kid. He wouldn't know anything about something 8,000 years ago. Heck, he probably couldn't remember what he did 8 days ago, so naturally, Handan City didn't ring any bells. But now, Zhao Mu understood, this monster was someone from Handan City, transformed by the corruption 8,000 years ago. They were driven into the 10,000 Demons Forest and eventually imprisoned in this secret realm by powerful humans and monsters. The person he was waiting for was either long dead or had become a monster too, but wasn't lucky enough to remember their past. I don't know if that's lucky or not. If it were me, Zhao Mu thought, I'd rather die. Zhao Mu suddenly had an idea. How did you regain your memory? He asked the monster. Regained. There was a cave. I ate something, and then I remembered. Some kind of elixir that removes demonic energy. Zhao Mu's eyes lit up. Could you take me to that cave? No. I have to stay here and wait for her, the monster said firmly, his eyes turning violent. Black mud oozed from his body, emitting a powerful demonic aura as if to drive them away. He's at the peak of the heaven level. His power is bordering on the god transformation realm. We need to get out of here, Su Yang said quickly. He wasn't about to fight a monster that strong. Zhao Mu was tempted, but he thought this guy was already miserable, and he was technically an ancestor of his Zhao state. Attacking him didn't feel right. Time to retreat. As soon as they left the hut, the stone door slammed shut again. Zhao Mu frowned. This monster's power was terrifying, way beyond his own. Even for a heaven-class monster, the raw strength was unbelievable. It must have something to do with whatever he ate in that cave. Too bad he's hard to talk to. If they could find the cave, they might strike gold, but it was too soon to give up. If he won't tell us, they'll just have to find it themselves. They'd start hunting monsters near the stone city and search along the way. Back outside, Zhao Mu said goodbye to Su Yang, who wanted to stay in the ancient city to keep digging for clues and wasn't interested in hunting monsters for points. After leaving the ancient city, Zhao Mu and Niu Yulan started hunting monsters nearby. This area was close to the center of the secret realm, so there were plenty of monsters. Farming points was pretty efficient, allowing Zhao Mu to hold on to 5th place on the scoreboard, but after looking at the scoreboard, Zhao Mu gave up on 1st place entirely. Kong Miaoyin had over 500,000 points, 300,000 more than Long Tianxiang in 2nd place. Zhao Mu had 120,000 points, 10,000 less than 4th place. He could pass them with a little effort. "Little brother, I found you." Just as Zhao Mu was happily grinding monsters, a familiar voice called out in the distance, making his heart sink. It was Xing Ziyue. "Senior sister." Zhao Mu said awkwardly. He really didn't want to deal with her. He always thought she was a bit off. Ignoring Niu Yulan's glare, Xing Ziyue grabbed Zhao Mu's hand, acting all lovey-dovey. "Why are you being so cold? I've been searching everywhere for you these past 2 days. I even hunted a bunch of monsters to help you win and got over 5,000 points. Come on, call me a good sister, and I'll give you all the points." Chapter 64 Xing Ziyue's Shipwreck. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before Zhao Mu could say anything, Niu Yulan, having had enough, stepped between Xing Ziyue and Zhao Mu, pulling Xing Ziyue away. "Who do you think you are? Show some respect and keep your hands to yourself, Zhao." Only then did Xing Ziyue notice Niu Yulan, eyeing her up and down. "Well, aren't you a fine piece of farm girl? Shouldn't you be home, eating your fill and raising a milk cow? Why are you all puffed up and interfering with my little brother? It's got nothing to do with you." Niu Yulan, stung by Xing Ziyue's words, flushed red with anger and started shaking. She grabbed a fistful of Xing Ziyue's hair and started swinging. Xing Ziyue was no pushover. Pain shot through her, and she lunged forward, pinning Niu Yulan. One hand clamped down on her chest, while the other went for a handful of hair. Zhao Mu stood there, dumbfounded. What in the world was going on? Did a disagreement mean it was time to throw down now? 2 alchemy practitioners were fighting like street cats, caring nothing for their reputation. Wow! Niu Yulan, suddenly finding a surge of strength, ripped Xing Ziyue's skirt, exposing a large patch of pale skin. Zhao Mu, ready to jump in and break it up, suddenly hesitated. Wait a minute, this was a first for him. He had to see where this went. Besides, Zhao Mu realized that despite the apparent fury, the two were holding back, not using any spiritual weapons. Given their power and cultivation, they could scrap like this for a month and barely scratch each other. He just needed to keep an eye on them, making sure things didn't escalate. "Oh, you little farm girl, you think you can take advantage of my kind heart, huh? Zhao, you have to back me up here." In the middle of the fight, Xing Ziyue suddenly ran toward Zhao Mu, putting on a pitiful act. Tears welled up in her eyes as she practically threw herself into his arms. Her already torn clothes chose that moment to fall apart, leaving her in a thin shift as she nestled against Zhao Mu. Zhao Mu was floored. This older sister was seriously fierce. Zhao Mu, no longer able to stand it, quickly pushed Xing Ziyue away, pulled a robe from his storage ring, and covered her. At the same time, he stopped Niu Yulan from giving chase. "Calm down, Yulan. Don't let her get to you. She's just messing with you. The bigger your reaction, the more she'll enjoy it. Ignore her, and she'll get bored." Zhao Mu tried to soothe Niu Yulan. Xing Ziyue's eyes sparkled. She was surprised. She hadn't expected Zhao Mu to see through her so easily. This little brother was sharper than he looked. It was true, Xing Ziyue's favorite thing in life was to have a good time. She was the biggest thrill-seeker in the Holy Origin Demon Sect. Where there was fun, she was there. and if there wasn't any fun, she'd create it herself. Of course, she didn't offer this kind of entertainment to just anyone, and freely show off her body, but Zhao Mu was special, a genius of the human race, pure yang in body, incredibly talented, with a bright future ahead of him. Teasing such a promising young student was much more fun than picking on just anyone, pulling the rope tighter. Ziyue laughed inwardly, but kept up her sad act. She looked at Zhao Mu, aggrieved. Zhao, you're taking her side against me? After we promised to be together forever? You're so ungrateful, a fickle man who moves on so easily, boo-hoo. Seriously? You're going method acting after a few words. Niu Yulan, lacking Zhao Mu's insight, took a step back, looking at him with suspicion. Zhao, is that true? Here it comes. Ziyue wiped away fake tears and snickered, eager to see how Zhao Mu would respond to Niu Yulan. How could I, a genius of the human race, be in love with someone from the demon race? Not happening on my watch. Zhao Mu shot Ziyue a look of annoyance. He was now completely sure that she was just a fun-loving person, someone who just wanted to stir things up for the sake of it. If he didn't shut her down, there was no telling what she'd say next. With a mental resolve, Zhao Mu sighed and said to Niu Yulan, now that it's out in the open, I have nothing to hide. Xing and I, we have been intimate. It's all my fault. I can't say no to a woman. As long as they ask, I cave. It was pouring rain that day, and Xing cried, saying she wouldn't marry anyone but me. She said she'd kill herself if I didn't agree. I, Zhao Mu, have always done good deeds, and my life's goal is to help others. How could I let her die for me? I had to agree, just play along, hoping that one day she'd find someone else and I could disappear quietly. I didn't want you to witness this, but now that it's happened, I had to tell you. Yulan, it's up to you. You can stay or go. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it. I'll take all the blame. When Zhao Mu finished speaking, Niu Yulan's eyes filled with tenderness. Ziyue, on the other hand, gaped, stunned. You can do that? This little brother seemed so innocent, but he was so skilled. She'd underestimated him, and now she was in a pickle. Zhao, I was wrong. I shouldn't have doubted you. I'm not a jealous person, and I don't want to keep you all to myself. With that, Niu Yulan walked up to Ziyue, took her hand, and said softly, Xing, I understand. We're cultivators, but we still have emotions. Who can resist true love? Don't worry, I won't chase you away. We'll be good sisters from now on. The three of us will stay together, sharing joys and sorrows. Who knows, it might make a good story someday. Haha. Ziyue forced a smile, especially when she saw Zhao Mu smirking at her from behind Niu Yulan. She felt even more speechless. That brat. He was such a trickster. He'd played them both. Was there a way to come clean and explain everything? No way. She couldn't afford the embarrassment. Admitting defeat meant she was at least a rejected, resentful woman. If it came out that she'd been tricked, it would be a public humiliation. Acting was all about commitment. For now, she'd go along with Niu Yulan. Later, if the story got out and the Demon Sect disciples learned that she was sharing a husband, it would be bad for her reputation, but she didn't care about those. After all, just for fun, she could make up the story that she defeated her 9 ex-husbands. Having made up her mind, Ziyue put on an expression of surprise and joy, hugging Niu Yulan excitedly. Niu, you're so kind. From now on, you're the main wife and I'm the concubine. We'll serve our man together, forever. As she said this, Ziyue turned up the corners of her mouth slightly, casting a provocative smile at Zhao Mu. This isn't over yet. We'll see. Chapter 65 9th Grade Tianyuan Pill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ziyue, human race, lonely evil physique, 10th level of golden core, favorability, 60. Binding possible. Zhao Mu's eyebrows shot up when he saw Ziyue's stats on the system interface. He figured that after his little trick, Ziyue's favorability would plummet, but apparently, it was still high enough. So, should he bind her? Normally, with Ziyue's strange personality, Zhao Mu wouldn't bet on ever getting her favorability to 100, but binding her to the system changed the game. Gifts came with bonus favorability, the amount was the only question. That meant that if he could bind her, eventually, Zhao Mu could max out her favorability, and he wouldn't have to worry about hogging a return slot forever. Besides, he'd only used 2 of his 10 binding slots. After a moment's thought, Zhao Mu waved his hand and bound Ziyue as a return subject. Perfect timing. Since he hadn't used Niu Yulan's return number for the day, Zhao Mu rummaged in his storage ring and pulled out 2 7th-grade Henyuan pills. These Henyuan pills were top-shelf stuff for boosting cultivation. Fan Dang had squirreled away only 5, and gave them all to Zhao Mu. Zhao Mu hadn't been in a rush to use them, but now, aiming for a top 3 spot, he felt he needed an edge, and this was the perfect opportunity for a temporary boost. Giving away 2 7th-grade Henyuan pills should net him 2 8th-grade Henyuan pills. He wasn't sure exactly how much that would amp him up, but it couldn't hurt. What a lovely day. I'll bestow these 2 7th-grade Henyuan pills upon you ladies. May you live in harmony and support one another. Zhao Mu said, stuffing the pills into their hands. Niu Yulan started to protest, but Ziyue eagerly snatched hers up. This guy wasn't kidding around, handing out 7th-grade pills like candy. Ding! You gifted Niu Yulan a 7th-grade Henyuan pill, triggering a 500x return. You receive an 8th-grade Henyuan pill. Niu Yulan's favorability plus 20. Ding! Niu Yulan's favorability has reached 100. She is permanently bound to the host for returns, no longer occupying a binding slot. Her favorability is locked at 100 points, permanently. Ding! You gifted Ziyue a 7th-grade Henyuan pill, triggering a 3000x return. You receive a 9th-grade Tianyuan pill. Ziyue's favorability plus 2. The system alerts lit up Zhao Mu's face. Little Cow's favorability broke 100 fast, and the perks were even better than he'd imagined. Permanent binding that didn't take up a slot, plus locked favorability. That meant whatever he did to Niu Yulan in the future, her opinion wouldn't change. Zhao Mu realized this might be the system's real killer feature. With her favorability maxed, Niu Yulan looked at Zhao Mu differently. Beyond admiration, there was worship, devotion even. She'd take a bullet for him now, no questions asked. If Zhao Mu died, she'd follow him straight into the afterlife. That was the power of 100% favorability. Of course, Zhao Mu wasn't some heartless jerk. Since Niu Yulan was all in, he'd treat her right. Any good stuff he found in the future would go to her first. As for Ziyue, 2 favorability points for a 7th-grade elixir. She could kick rocks. Alright, let's find a spot. I need to meditate for a bit. The 9th-grade Tianyuan pill was the real deal, packed with spiritual energy and the true essence of the world. It was like a super shot for cultivators. After refining the Tianyuan pill, Zhao Mu would definitely level up. Then, he could focus on hunting heaven-level monsters. Half the hunting days were gone, no time to mess around. They quickly found a secluded cave. The 2 women stood guard while Zhao Mu popped the Tianyuan pill, sat cross-legged, and started refining it. The Tianyuan pill lived up to the hype. Zhao Mu could feel the potency the moment he swallowed it. Still, even at that level, it didn't feel that special. Thanks to his Red Sun Saint body and human emperor bloodline, for most cultivators, swallowing a 9th-grade pill would be a major ordeal. They'd be writhing in agony, their meridians tearing as they struggled to contain the power, but Zhao Mu just breathed a little faster and felt a bit warm. The whole process took less than an hour. When he was done, Zhao Mu was bummed to see the big power-up he'd been expecting never materialized. He'd only gone from the 5th level of golden core to the 6th. This stuff is fake. Zhao Mu muttered, dumbfounded. A 9th-grade pill. The average golden core cultivator could jump straight to the nascent soul realm with that. Why was it doing so little for him? Zhao Mu carefully checked himself and quickly figured it out. It was simple, really. With a regular physique and normal blood, this Tianyuan pill would have catapulted him to the nascent soul realm, but because he had the Red Sun Saint body and the human emperor bloodline, his appetite was insane. Back in the foundation establishment stage, he'd needed 1,000 times more spiritual energy than anyone else to break through. Now that his red sun saint body and human emperor bloodline had gotten stronger, the demand was even higher. Most of the Tianyuan pill's power was getting sucked up by those two bottomless pits. Only a small fraction actually went into leveling him up. Still, it wasn't all bad, the strength increase was still decent. After all, the whole point of being a prodigy was that you could punch above your weight class. Niu Yulan had mentioned that the demon race's top prodigies could even beat opponents 2 entire realms above them. Zhao Mu wasn't quite there yet, but he was sure his potential rivaled those top-tier demons. In the Golden Core realm, he might actually have a shot at beating enemies 2 realms stronger. Only then would he be considered one of the human race's top talents. Only then could he protect the human race and be their shield. Zhao Mu exhaled and slowly stood up. He saw Niu Yulan, but Ziyue was gone. That woman couldn't take it anymore and ran off. But then, Ziyue's voice came from a narrow crack in the cave. "Yulan, get over here. I told you there had to be a way through." "Found it. It's really well hidden." "What way?" Zhao Mu asked, walking over. Ziyue saw Zhao Mu was awake and muttered, "You meditate fast." Then, she pointed to an extremely well-hidden crack. "I noticed weird spiritual energy coming from here. Figured there had to be something good hidden nearby." "I was right. If I'm not mistaken, that crack leads to an underground chamber with tons of spiritual energy." "Oh," Zhao Mu remembered what the monster had said about the cave. Could it be they'd actually found it? Let's go take a look. Chapter 66 Golden Fruit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The opening was barely big enough for one person. Zhao Mu drew his flying sword and cleared a path, with Niu Yulan and Ziyue right behind him, keeping pace. Like Ziyue had predicted, a powerful wave of spiritual energy surged from the gap. Along with the energy, Zhao Mu could smell the sweet fragrance of rare herbs in the air. This only strengthened his resolve, and he picked up the pace. After about 15 minutes, the flow of spiritual energy intensified, indicating they were getting close. Focusing, Zhao Mu gripped his sword and unleashed a powerful blast of energy, carving a passage hundreds of yards long through the rock. At the end of the tunnel, a brilliant, multicolored light was visible. "My hero is so strong." That sword was incredible, like it had a mind of its own. Niu Yulan gushed, completely starstruck. Ziyue chimed in, "He's got real potential. No true sword intent yet, but the heart is there. With practice, he might actually master the way of the sword." Zhao Mu kept moving, ignoring their compliments. Mastering sword intent wasn't easy. The Shengyuan Demon Sect had plenty of talent, but only Long Tianxiang had actually achieved it. Honestly, Zhao Mu didn't even know what sword intent was. For him, flying swords were mainly for getting around, not fighting. The power behind that last strike came from the red sun within him. With enough force, you can make anything work. They reached the end of the passage, and the space opened up before them. It was an underground cavern, teeming with life. The cave wasn't that big, but it was covered in lush, ancient vegetation, unlike anything they'd seen outside. Without sunlight, most of these plants glowed with vibrant colors, making the place look like a dream. A quick scan confirmed it. The cave was full of plants radiating intense spiritual energy, ancient and valuable elixirs. Without a doubt, so many elixirs. Niu Yulan gasped. Ziyue's eyes gleamed with cunning. This place was a treasure trove, and it looked untouched. The elixirs had to be thousands of years old, making them incredibly valuable. Too bad Zhao Mu and Niu Yulan were here. She could have kept it all for herself, but after a moment, Ziyue abandoned that idea, mostly because she doubted she could beat Zhao Mu. Ziyue sidled up to Zhao Mu, bumped her shoulder against his, and whispered, 50-50 split, what do you say? He wanted to share the elixirs. Zhao Mu feigned confusion. Half of your haul, or half of mine. Ziyue rolled her eyes. How about we split it 3 ways, but you get 70% since you're the muscle, and I get 30%. It's only fair since I found the cave. Ziyue grabbed his arm, sounding whiny and flirtatious. Zhao Mu paused. I might go for 30%, but I get to sort the elixirs first. And I'll give you one a day until you reach your 30% cut. Ziyue gritted her teeth. How could she agree to that? Zhao Mu would keep all the good stuff for himself and give her the dregs. She'd get ripped off, but before she could argue, Zhao Mu smirked. Think master might give you a few years of confinement if I told him what happened today. Damn you, you little brat, dragging master into this. Fine, fine. 30%, deal. Xing Ziyue caved. Losing a few elixirs wasn't the end of the world, but she hated being outmaneuvered. Now that Zhao Mu had something on her, he'd probably use it to make her do things later. Wait, thinking about it, Xing Ziyue got a little excited. Sensing the change in her expression, Zhao Mu felt a shiver run down his spine. This couldn't be good. Fine, he'd give her a few extra elixirs. Just think of it as a bonus, and with that, the three of them fanned out and began combing the cave. They collected every elixir they could find, no matter the quality. This was the Warcraft's secret realm, so there was no point in holding back. If they didn't take them, someone or something else would. After searching, they had collected over 300 elixirs. Zhao Mu knew a bit about identifying elixirs, but these were high quality and extremely old, so he couldn't say for sure what they were, but judging by the energy they gave off, they had to be something special. There's another path over here. Xing Ziyue called out suddenly. Zhao Mu followed the sound and spotted a well-hidden opening, leading into another cave. He glanced at Xing Ziyue. You're like a dog, always sniffing out holes. Xing Ziyue glared at him, then pulled an ancient book from her storage ring and tossed it to Zhao Mu. He caught it. Celestial Vision. A top-tier Earth-level skill. Training in it allows the user to activate sky-eye sensing and greatly enhance their spiritual awareness, the high-grade Earth skill. That's serious. And you're just giving it to me? Well, you are my husband now, Xing Ziyue said with exaggerated sweetness. Zhao Mu didn't believe that for a second. Still, the skill was tempting, but he decided to wait. He'd give it to Niu Yulan tomorrow and see what he could get in return. If he could get a heaven-level skill for divine consciousness, that would be a huge win. Putting those thoughts aside, the three of them entered the path. It was narrow, forcing them to hunch over. After a few dozen steps, the path opened up. They climbed a slope, and a new cave came into view. Whoa! Zhao Mu's scalp crawled. The cave was vast and deep, filled with a massive horde of monsters. He estimated there were over 10,000, and they weren't weak. Hundreds radiated the aura of heaven-level beasts. Xing Ziyue and Niu Yulan turned pale. The sight was terrifying. Surrounded by that many monsters, even a powerful god would be doomed. Shoo, keep it down. Control your breathing. Don't disturb them. Luckily, we're on higher ground. It's not easy for those monsters to climb up here. We should be okay if we go back the way we came, quick. Zhao Mu agreed. This was a lot of points, enough to shoot him to the top of the rankings, but that would require a life to get out of here. Just as he was about to turn around, he spotted a blood-red elixir growing on a nearby cliff, bearing a fist-sized golden fruit. It hung in the air, almost falling. Incredible energy. That fruit contains more spiritual energy than all 300 elixirs combined. Zhao Mu gulped. This might be the biggest score of the entire trip. Chapter 67 Adding Fuel to the Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Whoa! Is that the legendary Xianyang red gold fruit? Xing Ziyue followed Zhao Mu's gaze to the golden fruit and her eyes went wide. Zhao Mu slapped a hand over her mouth, quickly glancing around to make sure the monsters hadn't been disturbed. He sighed in relief when he saw they were still calm. Xing Ziyue, realizing she'd been too loud, gave him an apologetic look, but her eyes were glued to the golden fruit, like she was ready to devour it. Niu Yulan seemed to remember something and whispered, "Isn't the Xianyang red gold fruit supposed to be extinct?" Ziyue, are you positive that's what it is? Absolutely. I read about the Xianyang red gold fruit in an old text. It matches this thing perfectly. Plus, this one's fully mature, so its medicinal properties are at their peak. And based on the size and shape of the leaves, it's gotta be at least 5,000 years old, maybe even 10,000. It's a real treasure. Zhao Mu had just figured the fruit was worth some cash, but hearing Xing Ziyue, he realized it was worth way more. It was a straight-up precious medicine. Elixirs are ranked from 1 to 10, and the value almost doubles with each grade. The 10th grade elixir is worth a nascent soul warrior risking their life for. But precious medicines are another level entirely. They're beyond elixirs, truly miraculous stuff born from the purest spiritual energy. You can't even put a price on them. Zhao Mu had picked up some info about this back in Yaowang Valley. As far as he knew, the whole Shengyuan Demon Sect, with 8,000 years of stockpiling, probably didn't have more than 10 precious medicines. Nobody messes with those things. They're locked up tight in the sect's most secure vault. Only Empress Qingyun can authorize their use. What surprised Zhao Mu even more was the way he could sense the medicinal energy of the Xianyang red gold fruit resonating with his red sun holy body. This could really boost his powers, but still, it's a precious medicine. Imagine how much the sect would pay for it. Zhao Mu made up his mind then and there. He was grabbing that Xianyang red gold fruit, but just as he was about to go for it, Ziyue stopped him. Precious medicines are born from the essence of heaven and earth. There are always dangers lurking nearby. You can't just grab it. Don't let the potential rewards blind you. Her words snapped Zhao Mu back to reality. Yeah, there are tons of treasures in the cultivation world, but the best stuff never comes easy. Seemingly safe places often hide unknown risks. Snagging something like this wouldn't be easy. Zhao Mu patiently scanned the area around the Xianyang red gold fruit using his divine sense. The rock face was jagged and uneven, with plenty of blind spots. He needed to be thorough, but no matter how hard he searched, he couldn't find any traps or dangers. He could only rely on Ziyue. Her perception was far better than his. Ziyue studied the area intently, looking puzzled, and said, "This is weird. I've checked everything, and I really can't sense any hidden threats. Am I just being paranoid? What if I try something? I have a mechanical bird that can scout ahead. If there's trouble, we can pull it back. If it's clear, it can grab the treasure," Niu Yulan offered. She then summoned a puppet that looked like an owl. The mechanical bird was jet black, with no mouth or eyes, but it moved with incredible agility, circling Niu Yulan without a sound or even the slightest hint of its presence. Like the Catwoman sisters, this was a puppet made using the Demon Sect's puppetry techniques. That thing was incredibly rare. Who knew Niu Yulan was hiding something like that? I recognize that. Isn't that the bizarre mechanical bird created by Xiangying, the Demon Sect's top mechanical genius? They say it's made with incredibly expensive materials, costing over 1 trillion spiritual stones to make just one. Thanks to the sect's backing, he only managed to make 3. How did you get your hands on one? Ziyue's eyes lit up, as if she was about to spill all the tea. Huh? It's that valuable? I didn't know. Senior brother Ziyue just gave it to me, but he said it was just a cheap little trinket. If I'd known it was worth so much, I never would have taken it. Niu Yulan quickly explained, sneaking a peek at Zhao Mu's expression, afraid of causing a misunderstanding. Ziyue wasn't about to let the moment pass and giggled. I bet Xiangying has a crush on you, Yulan. I mean, you're cute and gorgeous. It's only natural that someone would be crushing. Niu Yulan waved her hands frantically. No, Ziyue and I have known each other since we were kids, but we're not that close. Husband, please don't get the wrong idea. I'll return the bird after the hunting trip. Why give it back? If it's a gift, just keep it. Zhao Mu shrugged. He wasn't about to get jealous over something so trivial. If other guys were after his woman, that just meant he had good taste. Is this Xiangying guy famous? Ziyue eagerly explained. Xiangying isn't on the list of top talents and his strength isn't that exceptional, but his puppetry skills are unmatched in the sect. The 6th elder really values him. The puppetry sect will move mountains if he asks for materials. It's said that even Queen Qingyun praised him. She paused, adding fuel to the fire. I met Xiangying once. Not only is he talented, but he's also one of the most handsome guys in the demon clan. I bet tons of girls are obsessed with him. In the inner sect, his popularity among female disciples is probably second only to Saint June Mo. And to think, Yulan and this Xiangying are childhood sweethearts. How exciting, that were you born to stir up trouble. Zhao Mu stepped over to Ziyue and gave her round, firm rear a playful squeeze. Caught off guard, Ziyue's body stiffened, her face flushed crimson, and she glared at Zhao Mu with a mix of embarrassment and resentment. Zhao Mu ignored her and said to Niu Yulan, "Let's not worry about that for now. Getting the Xianyang red gold fruit is the priority. There are too many monsters around here. The longer we stay, the more dangerous it gets." Niu Yulan nodded and used a secret technique to control the mechanical bird, sending it flying toward the cliff. The mechanical bird flew silently, safely reaching the Xianyang red gold fruit. After checking for any nearby dangers, Niu Yulan gave the all-clear and controlled the bird to grab the precious medicine and bring it back the way it came. Everything went smoothly, but just as the mechanical bird returned to Niu Yulan, the entire underground cave shook violently, and the rock walls on all sides began to crumble and slide. The passage behind them collapsed with a deafening boom, cutting off their escape route. At the same time, tens of thousands of monsters in the cave were awakened, letting out roars like a chorus of ghosts and wolves. Chapter 68: A Big Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xing Ziyue's face paled. "We're cooked. The root system of that plant was connected to the Earth's energy. Now that it's gone, it'll seal off the whole cave and those monsters will have us trapped like rats." She knew taking such a rare plant wouldn't be easy, and now they were paying the price. Zhao Mu, while surprised by the plant's magic, didn't freak out. Even though their escape route was blocked, he immediately summoned his flying sword, channeled all his energy, and stabbed at the rock wall, trying to blast a new exit, but the sword only made it a few feet before bouncing back. Looking closer, Zhao Mu saw a solid wall of or had formed in the rock face. It was the same impenetrable stuff they'd run into before. This was bad. With that rock in the way, the flying sword couldn't break through. They were truly trapped. From below, the monsters roared. Zhao Mu's sword attack had drawn their attention. Suddenly, a horde of monsters surged forward like a black tidal wave, ready to swallow them whole. Niu Yulan and Xing Ziyue, terrified, clung to Zhao Mu, holding on for dear life. Zhao Mu's heart pounded. In desperation, he pulled out the gem and Zishuan had given him and crushed it. Instantly, the space around them warped at an odd frequency, creating a circular force field about 30 feet across, shielding the three of them. Rumble. A deafening crash echoed. Hundreds of heaven-level monsters slammed into the barrier, but it barely flickered. Instead, the monsters' heads shattered from the force. The crystals in several monsters' skulls were crushed instantly, killing them and adding tens of thousands of points to Zhao Mu's score. The two girls slowly opened their eyes, amazed. Niu Yulan didn't understand what was happening, but Xing Ziyue caught on quickly. This must be a saint technique. Only she in the whole Shengyuan Demon Sect has the talent for space magic. Looks like the saint thinks highly of you. Was that a hint of jealousy? Was she really complaining about the saint showing him favor? Zhao Mu ignored her, focusing on the monsters outside the barrier. The mindless creatures kept attacking, but the barrier itself was lethal. The heaven-level monsters were badly hurt, and the earth-level ones were obliterated instantly upon impact. Zhao Mu watched the monsters charge, only to be decapitated as points kept racking up. In no time, Zhao Mu's score jumped by 100,000, instantly bumping Long Tianxiang to third place. He still had a ways to go to catch Kong Miaoyin, but at this rate, he figured he might have a shot. Am I going to get flagged for cheating, racking up points like this? Whatever, gotta get that high score. Zhao Mu muttered, about to step forward and check the monster situation, but as he moved, he realized the entire barrier moved with him. When he took a few steps forward, the barrier crushed a bunch of monsters, sending his points soaring by tens of thousands more. The barrier was centered on him. A sly smile spread across Zhao Mu's face. He strode forward. He was invincible. No matter what level of beast, everything was crushed by the space force. It was outrageous, destroying anything it touched. Zhao Mu casually strolled around, wiping out most of the monsters with the power of the space barrier. His points jumped to 700,000, 50,000 more than Kong Miaoyin, putting him in first place. He could even give half his points to Niu Yulan and they could grab second and third, pushing Long Tianxiang out of the top three. Even with 2 days left, it would be tough for Long Tianxiang to catch up. Gotta finish off the rest of these monsters. That'll get me at least another 100,000 points. Suddenly, the barrier started rippling harder and harder, like a bubble about to pop. With a snap, the barrier burst, the horde of monsters flooded in, the space barrier wasn't invincible. Once its power was drained, it failed. My bad. Luckily, the heaven-level monsters were gone. The remaining thousands were only Earth-level. Still a threat, but manageable. Purple lightning entanglement. Zhao Mu unleashed bolts of purple lightning that crackled and spread over a few dozen yards, trapping the monsters. Then, he used burning flame palm with blazing fire, and his flying sword swept through. This was his bread and butter, most effective against hordes of enemies. As long as the lightning kept them pinned, he could cut them down. Using his go-to strategy, Zhao Mu single-handedly killed all the remaining monsters. When the crystal in the last monster's skull shattered, Zhao Mu was exhausted. Why didn't he feel this tired when he was in bed? Ziyue stared at the monster corpses, her eyes wide. When the barrier broke, she thought they were done for, but Zhao Mu held his own, taking them all out. These were Earth-level monsters, many as strong as Yuanian cultivators. Monsters were simple-minded and not as dangerous as cunning cultivators, but their numbers were huge, and wiping them out was no easy task. Even a Yuanian cultivator at their peak would hesitate to take them on head-on, but Zhao Mu, he was a ruthless fighting machine, with a spiritual power that never seemed to run out. What Jindan cultivator has that kind of power? Not many Yuanian cultivators could be that confident. This was the foundation of a true genius. He keeps surprising me. Maybe sticking with him isn't such a bad idea. After resting, Zhao Mu started to recover. His healing was impressive. After such a fierce fight, he felt recharged. He could take on hundreds more monsters. Zhao Mu checked his points, 820,000, not much more than Kong Miaoyin. With 2 days left, she only needed to keep her pace to take back the lead. Without an Zishuan space barrier, he wouldn't be able to repeat today's feat that he decided to try to keep second and third. First place was up to fate. Crack. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the rock wall ahead, opening a new path. Zhao Mu frowned. This underground cave was more complex than he thought. What secrets were hidden ahead? Should he go take a look? Chapter 69, Awakening from an 8,000-year Dream. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You coming or what? Is it over yet? Ziyue was teetering on the edge, almost collapsing. Either way, there's no turning back now. We gotta check it out, Zhao Mu said, staying cool. They'd already survived being swarmed by 10,000 monsters. Whatever obstacles lay ahead, they had to push through. Niu Yulan rushed to hand Zhao Mu the Xianyang red gold fruit. Zhao Mu checked the system. The return count hadn't refreshed yet, so he took the fruit, figuring he'd find a way to give it back to Niu Yulan later. The three of them got it together, bucked up, and headed toward the newly appeared path. After navigating a twisty tunnel, the space ahead suddenly became murky, thick with a brownish-gray mist. Careful. This is the foul miasma. It's what swept across the earth back then, corrupting everything and turning creatures into mindless killing machines. Ziyue warned, hurrying her words. Zhao Mu wasn't about to get careless. He immediately activated the red sun power. His body turned into a miniature sun, radiating intense heat. He used the heat waves like a shield wall, pushing back the miasma, not letting it get close. It evaporated instantly in the blazing heat and powerful yang energy. Zhao Mu, brimming with pure yang energy, seemed to have a natural advantage against this evil miasma. Ziyue and Niu Yulan walked beside Zhao Mu, feeling safe and secure. It was just a little too hot, and their clothes were soaked with sweat, feeling sticky and uncomfortable. Breaking through the miasma, Zhao Mu and the others reached the end of the path and found themselves in a new cavern. This cave was different. It was clearly man-made, with rock walls smooth as if cut with a knife. The material was the same ultra-hard ore Zhao Mu had encountered before. The entire cavern was a perfect square, big enough to fit a mountain. The miasma was everywhere, but it was thickest in the center, and the color was off. It wasn't brownish-gray, but pale. It didn't seem as potent as they expected. That's weird. The miasma doesn't seem nearly as bad as described in the books. Maybe it's lost its punch over time. Ziyue wondered. Zhao Mu also felt it was lacking, so he moved forward, reaching the center of the cave. Looking closely, Zhao Mu saw the miasma seemed to be drawn to some kind of core. A ton of the mist was condensing into a super-concentrated ball. Liquid was dripping from the thick fog, forming a pale, eerie lake on the ground. The pale lake water was pure liquefied miasma, but instead of feeling evil, it felt pure. Suddenly, Zhao Mu had an idea. Leaving a protective layer of pure yang energy around Niu Yulan and Xing Ziyue, he flew his sword back to the previous cavern and started searching. Before long, Zhao Mu found a survivor. It was a living monster. Zhao Mu grabbed the monster, flew back to the pale lake, and tossed the thing right in. Seeing this, Xing Ziyue immediately understood what Zhao Mu was thinking. He must suspect that this monster he met in the ancient city before was trying to regain its memories here. The monster thrashed and rolled around. Zhao Mu frowned, standing on the shore, carefully watching. Then, something amazing happened. The black, muddy body of the monster started dissolving in the pale lake water. Normal human skin was revealed underneath. A complete, female human body slowly emerged from the water. She slowly opened her eyes, the dark light fading, replaced by a normal gaze. Where am I? Zhao Mu pulled the woman ashore with a wave of his hand, wrapped her in a cloak, and asked, "What's your name? Where are you from?" The woman stared blankly at Zhao Mu and the others. After thinking for a long time, she said, "My name is Zhao Qiuyuan. I am the daughter of the Lord of Handan City. I remember leading the guards to fight off the evil spirits from the forest of 10,000 demons. Am I dead? Handan City." He was right. The key was her surname was Zhao, meaning she might be an ancestor of his. "I've got good news and bad news. Good news, you're not dead. Bad news, it's 8,000 years later." 8,000 years. Zhao Qiuyuan was stunned. She was just a mortal. 8,000 years was an impossible length of time for her to imagine. Xing Ziyue didn't give 2 cents about Zhao Qiuyuan's situation. She was staring at the pale lake, practically drooling. Even without knowing what was going on, she was positive this lake was a treasure. If she had found a lake like this 8,000 years ago, during the Great Filth Invasion, she would have instantly become a hero, saving everyone from suffering and respected by all. Even though the pollution had subsided, the lake water was still incredibly valuable for studying the source of the filth. It was a trump card. If the power of filth ever spread again, this treasure could solve everything. Handing this lake water over to the sect would definitely earn her a huge reward. "Let's start collecting this lake water, now," Xing Ziyue said impatiently. Zhao Mu knew what she was thinking, but collecting the lake water was a great idea. The value of this stuff was undeniable, but Zhao Mu still had some questions. How did the miasma become this treasure after 8,000 years? The foul miasma could corrode everything. Now, it was a cure-all. What happened to purify it? The lake water was valuable, yes, but the secret hidden in the lake might be even more valuable. Zhao Mu said, "Stay here and take care of Zhao Qiuyuan. I'm diving to the bottom of the lake to investigate." With that, Zhao Mu jumped into the pale lake. The water soaked him instantly. It didn't seem to affect him, but it did mess with his senses. Plus, the water was completely opaque. He quickly lost his bearings and could only swim toward the center of the lake by instinct. The lake wasn't big. Before long, Zhao Mu reached the center and started sinking. It was surprisingly deep. Zhao Mu sank a couple of 100 feet before his feet touched the bottom. Feeling around, Zhao Mu found small stones scattered across the bottom. They were circular in shape and had a faint magical presence. They were probably what he was looking for. Zhao Mu gathered 23 round stones of varying sizes. After searching for a while longer without finding anything else, he swam to the surface. He couldn't wait to examine his haul. Chapter 70, Strange Path of Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as you see them, these gems practically glow, like they've got miniature galaxies trapped inside. 23 of these star gems, like 23 galaxies scattered across the universe, floated on Zhao Mu's palm. It was mesmerizing. Zhao Mu tried channeling some spiritual energy into them, but got nothing back. He didn't know what they were, so he figured he'd just call them star stones. Just as collectibles go, these things were top tier. Zhao Mu, with his refined tastes, couldn't find a single thing to dislike about them. They had to be something special, even if he didn't know what. He showed them to Xing Ziyue and Niu Yulan. but they were just as clueless. Ziyue even scoffed, "After all that time fishing, you pulled out these glass beads." "My fish pond waters got more spiritual energy. I was going to give you one, but forget it," Zhao Mu retorted, annoyed. He'd worked to salvage them, and whether they were valuable or not, he didn't need the negativity. Niu Yulan, ever the diplomat, chimed in, "These stones are radiant in your hand, like you're holding the stars themselves. They're obviously a rare treasure. If you hadn't pulled them from the depths, no one would ever see them. Your eye is sharper than the stars, darling." Zhao Mu blushed a little. Ever since Niu Yulan's favorability hit 100, she'd become a bit overly flattering. He'd have to tone that down later. Next, the three of them pulled out their storage rings and started gathering the pale lake water. There was way too much water. They filled every available ring, but the lake level only dropped by half. "If we can't carry it, we can't. We'll come back next year and finish draining it," Zhao Mu said, then headed over to Zhao Qiuyan. "Once the hunting event is over, I'll report your situation to the sect and get you out of this secret realm." "What are your plans?" Zhao Qiuyan had already caught up on things thanks to Ziyue and Niu Yulan. "Handan City may be gone, but the Zhao dynasty still stands. I want to return to my homeland, naturally." Zhao Mu thought for a moment. "I'm from the Zhao kingdom too. How about this? I'm heading back home soon, so you can come with me. I'll escort you to the capital and help you find any surviving relatives. This one is grateful to the Immortal Master." Immortal Master, that's what the common folk in Xianwu continent called cultivators. "Don't mention it. I'm a Zhao myself. We might even share blood. If you don't mind, we could call each other brother and sister." "Then I will follow my brother's advice." After settling Zhao Qiuyan's affairs, Zhao Mu looked for an exit, but finding none, they had to backtrack. Luckily, the ore blocking the cave had vanished, making the return trip to the surface easy. It had been a rewarding trip. The Xianyang red gold fruit alone, setting aside the star stones and elixirs, would be a massive score for Zhao Mu. The value of a rare herb was hard to put a price on. Once out of the secret realm, he'd ask Master Fan Deng. When it came to herbal lore, nobody in the entire Shengyuan Demon Sect could touch him. With just over a day left, Zhao Mu checked the leaderboard. He was still in first place, but Kong Miaoyin was catching up fast. Long Tianxiang seemed to have gotten a second wind, too, racking up points, but he was still far behind. Zhao Mu needed to score more points to ensure he stayed at least twice as high as Long Tianxiang. Heading west, Zhao Mu decided to push into the deepest part of the secret realm, but there was a hitch. Zhao Qiuyan wasn't a cultivator. Slowing them down and putting her at risk, after some thought, Zhao Mu decided to escort Zhao Qiuyan to the ancient city and entrust her to Su Yang. Su Yang wasn't interested in the hunting event anyway, so keeping her safe wouldn't be a problem for him. With a thought, Zhao Mu summoned a gentle wind, enveloped Zhao Qiuyan, and flew towards the ancient city. They reached it quickly. Zhao Mu sensed Su Yang's energy, called out, and Su Yang hurried over. "How may I help you, senior brother Zhao?" Su Yang might have been a 500-year-old cultivator, but rank mattered in the demon sect. As a direct disciple, Zhao Mu outranked him by one level, so Su Yang was unfailingly polite. Zhao Mu briefly explained Zhao Qiuyan's story. Su Yang was shocked to learn that she was an ancient Zhao kingdom citizen who'd been purged of her demonic essence and restored. The mysterious lake water's effects excited him even more. Scratching his head, he said sheepishly, "Senior brother Zhao, would you part with some of that lake water? I'll trade you all 10,000 points I've earned." Zhao Mu instantly agreed. There was plenty of water, and he wouldn't know how to research it. He'd have to hand it over to the sect eventually anyway. Giving some to Su Yang was no loss. As for the points, Zhao Mu didn't refuse. Su Yang didn't care about them, so they were useless to him. Zhao Mu filled a water container with the pale water and handed it to Su Yang, entrusting Zhao Qiuyan to his care. No further explanation was needed. Su Yang was burning with curiosity about Zhao Qiuyan's transformation back to a human being, and was eager to talk to her. As Zhao Mu was about to leave, his expression changed abruptly. He teleported Ziyue and Niu Yulan away and left on his own. Moments later, Zhao Mu arrived at the underground stone house where the monster with the fragmented memories was held. The stone door stood open, and the monster was pacing nervously, clearly conflicted. "Why were you peeking just now, but too afraid to show yourself?" Zhao Mu asked calmly. The monster blurted out, "She's back. She really is. She's still beautiful, but I'm a monster and not worthy of her." Zhao Mu had suspected it, but he hadn't expected such a coincidence. The person the monster was waiting for was Zhao Qiuyan. It was hard to call it a coincidence. It was too improbable. It felt like fate. "You've waited so long. Shouldn't you see her?" The monster almost stepped out, but retreated into the stone house. "No. She's been through so much. I can't make things worse. I should wait here silently. Waiting is my fate. If I see her, all the good memories will turn into nightmares." That the monster clawed at its head, its mind beginning to fray. "All right, I'll do you a solid." Zhao Mu poured the pale lake water over the monster from head to toe. The black mud sloughed off, revealing a gaunt man's face. He stared at his human body, stunned. Just as Zhao Mu was about to conjure clothes for him, the man's eyes widened. His body started cracking without warning, black blood oozing from the fissures. He screamed in agony, unable to make a sound, staring at Zhao Mu, before dissolving into a pool of black liquid and disappearing. What? Zhao Mu hadn't anticipated this. Why? Zhao Qiuyan had been completely restored. How could the same lake water become lethal here? Why? Did fate refuse them even this much?